there are three things I think entrepreneurs should keep in mind. The first is to network actively. And it might seem a little bit obvious, but actually it isn't that obvious when you try and practice some of these things. You know, we all know that it's important to network. Entrepreneurs, many of them tend to go and attend different startup events, things like this. But you can end up with networking without really not very meaningfully engaging with networks. So you can end up with a stack of business cards, for example, after 2 or 3 events, but never look at them again and then discover them only when you're moving house or moving office. You know, so the first thing I would say is networking has to be done proactively in an active sort of way, but also in a way that is meaningful, which takes me to my second tip, which is I think networks have to be engaged with discerningly. So first, networks have to be dealt with actively. Don't wait for people to come to you. Go out and seek them, but also operate in a discerning way. So there are different types of relationships one can build, but chances are different relationships will benefit us in different ways. And one simple way that I think about relationships is the difference between ties or network relationships with people who are very similar to us. Maybe we have a family-based relationship. Close connections are often those with people who are very similar to us, as distinct from relationships with people who are different from us. And I think we tend to get different things from these kinds of relationships. We might get more moral support. We might get a deeper sense of solidarity. We might be able to do things in close partnership, like establishing a presence in another market. You might well want to engage with somebody who is from within a network that you trust a lot. But I also think these relationships with people who are very dissimilar from us are the ones ultimately that give us the novel information, ideas, opportunities. And one simple way to think about this is, particularly for Chinese entrepreneurs, I find very often when they go overseas, they tap into co-ethnic relationships, diaspora ties. And I think those are great. And if you can cultivate those and leverage them, that'll be great. But if that was all you did, then I would worry about the long-term viability of this venture in terms of succeeding overseas. I think going beyond one's comfort zone and getting other kinds of relationships. And I would put in this category partnering with large multinationals as well. Very often, multinationals are so dissimilar from new ventures. But you need to be clear about what you can realistically get out of a big multinational. You're not going to get a lot of sort of cuddly support and encouragement when things are going down. You need to cultivate different sort of advice networks and mentors for that, potentially. But big multinationals, especially when you can find a sweet spot where it's a win-win for them and you. And to go back to my first point, if you have been active, proactive to get their attention and show them that there is this potential synergy, then that could be a source of sort of the next spurt of growth or a way in which to efficiently internationalize. But that leads me also on to my third point, which is to leverage networks reflectively. Because if the only thing we look for from our network relationships is a win, a tangible output, some sort of business deal, some sort of new revenue, then I think beyond a point, one could get a little bit disappointed, because very often with network connections, there is a limit to how much tangible help they can provide, just how many actual business deals that they can either provide or help achieve. But on the other hand, if one took a slightly longer term perspective of relationships and thought, you know, I will be able to learn things through this relationship over time, then all of a sudden you will find greater value out of these relationships. And this might help you in the longer term, especially when you have to make adjustments to your strategy, because very often the initial entry strategy for a new venture may not be the strategy that they find makes the most sense for them over time, either because of ways in which the company has evolved, or because of the ways in which the ambitions of the companies have changed, or because indeed of changes in the marketplace. So active leverage of networks, discerning leverage of networks, and reflective leverage of networks, I think, is great advice to any entrepreneur that wants to go international. And I think it's good advice for anybody in terms of thinking about network relationships more generally.